You can tell that I have not brushed my hair yet this morning. Oh well. Now do I stretches on the internet. To see. Good morning. Happy Monday. It's morning for me, Margaret, today. I don't know if you can even hear when I talk this quietly. How was your weekend? Was it good? I hope so. My weekend was fair. It was pretty good. Yep. I've made a critical error in that I just already opened today's pack. I was just sitting here getting ready for the stream. I just opened it. So the big reveal is already done. Sorry. The first card is and everything. I probably could have used this time to sort the cards the way that I normally do. But I didn't do that. So I'm just going to do that now. I think, well, no spoilers. I do think I am going to have to make a, I think it's going to be a red-black deck. At least so far, that is what I am feeling. That's what I want. And feeling a red-black deck. And that's going to include all the amass, the best amass cards, the ones that do stuff with your zombie army. Okay. It doesn't look like a zombie. It looks like a Cylon. Anyway. There does seem to be a lot of repeat little old aids here, unfortunately. Well, I mean, it's not that unfortunate. Some of them are good, so you want multiples. All right, so let's go through the creatures first. First of all, we've got a keyboard in my way. First of all, we've got a Pouncing Lynx, the title of the creature before I put it in front of you. So then I had to read it backwards because it's flipped on my screen. This is a Pouncing Lynx. It is a 1/2. It costs 2 mana, one of which has to be a white mana. And it has first strike on your turn. So that's first strike. I don't know if we've talked about this before. For first strike, normally when one creature attacks another, their damage is resolved as if it occurred simultaneously. So if this were facing like a 3/3, well, yeah, if this were facing like a 3/2, they would both die instantly because the 3/2 would do 3 damage to this guy who only has a 1, and he would do 2 damage to a guy who only has 2. So they would both die. But in first strike, if this guy kills it, the other one does not have a chance to hit. So in this case, this would hit the 3/2. The 3/2 would die and would not get the chance to do the 3 damage to this guy. So it's a handy thing to have. It's unfortunate that it's only on your turn, which means that when it's blocking, it does not have. It says as long as it's your turn, Pouncing Lynx has first strike. So that means that when it's not your turn and someone attacks, if you were to block with this guy, it would not have first strike. So it is more susceptible to die when it is not your turn. But it is not the worst. I like first strike, generally speaking, because it can buff up creatures that are not otherwise. Like this guy's only a 2/1, and he only costs 2. But a 2/1 is a pretty good. 2/1 with first strike is a pretty good creature. So I'll leave that one there. This one we've definitely seen before. Charity Extractor. What kind of name is that? A very good one. Charity Extractor is a 1/5. Interesting. So it's sort of more of a blocking creature. It costs 4, and it has lifelink. So the fact that it has lifelink is sort of interesting because it's going to be a creature that you use to block, generally speaking, because it only has 1 attack. So you will periodically attack with it, especially if you get like +1 counters on it or something. But the lifelink just seems more like a perk than a feature, rather than like an integral part of it. So the fact that its cost is 4 for a 1/5, with the lifelink, I think it would be worth it. Without the lifelink, I wouldn't pay 4 for a 1/5 really, because there's nothing. That thing's just gonna sit around. No one's going to attack you until they know that they can kill it. So, and that might be true when it's a 1/5 with lifelink too, but at least you can attack with it and have some value to that. That is the other thing. You attack with this guy, and it is unlikely to be killed by something that it is attacking. So that is nice. Sort of forgot about that. Doesn't just have to sit around waiting to block. The next one is Crunch Wrangler. Again, with the very excellent names. Crunch Wrangler. This one costs 2, and it's a green, and it's a 2/1. And it has trample, so I don't know if we've gone over trample before, but trample is that, you know, if this creature went up against a 1/1, any damage that overflows that is more than enough to kill the creature that it attacked is done to the person who is controlling the creature. So if this attacks a 1/1, it kills the 1/1, and then it still has 1 attack left, and so that attack will go to the person who was controlling that creature. So that's fun. Trample is always nice. Whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Crunch Wrangler. Now, this would go well with. I just saw her for the other day when I was like doing something else. Okay, yeah, here. There's a Planeswalker, Kiora, Behemoth Beckoner. Whenever a creature with power of 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. So these two get along nicely. She's also green. She's green-blue. So these would be cards to sort of have together for that reason. Thunderdrake, we've been over Thunderdrake before. Thunderdrake is a 4 cost. It's a 2/3 and it has flying. And then whenever you cast your second spell on a turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Thunderdrake. So a second spell. Yeah. So just like any spell, casting a creature is also a spell. So if you were to put up 2 creatures in a turn, or if you cast an instant after putting a sorcery down or an enchantment or something like that. So not like a super helpful ability, I would say, but depending on the rest of your deck, it can be very helpful, especially if you just have a lot of sorceries. And this blue decks are very they're usually pretty spell heavy. They have a lot of they have a lot of like cancel spells, so that those you would be playing on your turn, so it wouldn't really count. But just something to think about. I just got completely sidetracked. All right, Charmed Stray. This is an adorable card. Look at the big fluffy cat. You can't say no to the big fluffy cat. Big fluffy cat costs 1 and is a 1/1, so that's nice. And it has lifelink, also nice. When Charmed Stray enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control named Charmed Stray. So you want a bunch of these. And I think this is the first one of these that I've seen in these packs. So that's unfortunate for me, the owner of the card. But you don't want too many of these in your deck. And in fact, sometimes depending on like what sort of rules you're playing by, there's probably a limit to the number of these that you're allowed to have in your deck. But the fact that it's a lifelink for 1 cost is nice. I have a couple like that in my white deck, but they are also flying, so they have that extra bonus of being flying and lifelink, and this one has the +1/+1 counter for all the other charmed strays and lifelink. So this is a pretty good bang for your buck kind of card. Only costs 1, good card to get out first or early. Vraska's Finisher. When Vraska's Finisher, she's a Gorgon assassin, so I'm already into it. Enters the battlefield, destroy target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls that was dealt damage this turn. Okay, well, not as into it anymore. So she costs, what is it, 3/3, and she is a 3/2. So not a terrible creature just to have as a creature. But her ability, when she enters the battlefield, so that's only going to happen once, unless she gets recalled somehow and you can put her back and all these things. But and there are decks that you can build around that idea, so that's not completely out of the realm of possibility. But when she enters the battlefield, you destroy target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls that was dealt damage this turn. So you first have to deal damage and then put her into the field. That's not impossible. Obviously, it's definitely allowed. It just but it does let you destroy the target creature. So there is no can they stop you, anything like that. And so unless they have a straight up cancel the spell, it will work. I just don't think that it's worth the 3 cost. Although she's also a creature, so she gets to stay out there and be creature and do creature things after that. So I don't know. I'm on the fence about this one. Yeah, I don't know. I think it again sort of depends on the makeup of the rest of your deck. If you have a rest of your deck that can support her in her Gorgon ways, then she could be worth her cost. Pollen Bright Druid. I do believe we've seen this before. Yes. When Pollen Bright Druid enters the battlefield, choose 1, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, or Proliferate, where you choose any number of permanents or players and give each another counter of each kind already there. This is a 1, what is it? Yeah, it's a 1/1 and it costs 2. We've talked a little bit about how Proliferate can be a really good strategy on a deck. Ben actually has a pretty good Proliferate deck, or at least a deck in which Proliferate would help and be good. So she's a useful creature. But it would definitely have to be, you definitely have to be relying on that Proliferate in some way to make her worth the 2 cost for a 1/1. Because the just put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, just straight up and down, that's not super useful. If it's part of a larger strategy, it makes sense. The last creature in this one is Rubblebelt Rioters. This is a green-red, so it costs 3 mana, 1 of which has to be green and 1 of which has to be red. And whenever it attacks, so it has haste, which means, yes, it has haste, which means it can attack on its first turn out. Whenever it attacks, it gets +X+0 until end of turn, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So right now it's a 0/4. But if you had a big power creature out there, like a 4/5 or something like that, then this becomes a 4/4. So this could go well in that deck. Oh, well, it doesn't. With the deck that has the whenever a creature with power of 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. Because what the problem with creatures that have 4 power or greater is that they're usually very expensive, and so they can only come out later in the deck or later in the game. But if you've built your deck around the concept of these high power creatures, then it's possible you could have finagled your deck to make it so that you can get them out a little bit earlier than normal. in which case this would be useful. Got it? All right. So those are all the creatures. We've got the spells. We've definitely seen this before. Stealth Mission. It's a 3-cost sorcery. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, and that creature cannot be blocked this turn. So that's nice because the +1/+1 counters are going to stay there. They don't go away when this spell is over. The cannot be blocked this turn part does go away, but the +1/+1 counters and the fact that there are 2 of them is nice. So this is a good 3-cost card. I am like 95% sure I have, well, no, I'm 100% sure I've seen this card before. I'm 95% sure I showed this card on this live stream before, and I just hope that I'm consistent in my rulings on whether these are like cards I would use or not. That would be embarrassing otherwise. Next spell is Heartfire. It's an instant, costs 2. It's a red. As an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature or planeswalker. Heartfire deals 4 damage to any target. So it's just a straight up and down damage spell, which is a big thing for red. The red, like, MO. And let's see. You have to sacrifice a creature or a planeswalker in order to get that 4 damage. But this would be a good early card or early game card if you're trying to get rid of, if for instance, you're playing against a person who has strategized to make their deck a one where they get out high power creatures early. And so you only have like a 1/1 creature and not a lot of mana. This card will allow you to destroy high powered cards before they can do damage to you. Especially because it is an instant. So it's nice in a tight spot. In some tournament rules for Magic, usually your deck is about 60 cards, but in some tournament rules, you bring like 80 cards, or I don't know what the number actually is because I've never played in a tournament, but you bring in extra cards, and then like as you I don't know if you like can talk to your opponent, or if you've just like played with them before, or you've watched their other games or something, or you just like know what kind of deck they have in terms of like, is it a red green deck, is it a blue deck, is, those sorts of things. You can add in cards or you can like trade out cards. So you like have 55 cards that you're like, yes, this deck is a good solid deck, and then I have space for 5 more cards that I can like use specifically against a specific opponent. This might be one of those cards where if you anticipate a high-powered deck, you can sort of protect yourself from it. Where are the ones? Okay, here we go. Last spell. It's an instant, and it's a green-white, so it's a 3-cost instant. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. You gain 1 life for each creature you control. So this would be helpful if you're being attacked, because it's an instant, so you can play it not on your turn. This would be helpful if you're being attacked and one of your creatures is going to die, and you don't want it to die. So you want to give it an extra +1 to protect it from dying. And it's especially useful if you have a lot of creatures out, because they each get a +1/+1 counter, and you get life for each creature that you control. So usually how this would go is you'd have this card in your hand for a little while, and you'd sort of be like moving towards it. You'd be like, okay, I got to get into this scenario where it's worth it to play this card, because this card costs a bit. I mean, it's 3. It's not like a lot, but you need, in order to play it not on your turn, you need to save 3 mana to be able to play it on the other person's turn. So you would be sort of like, you'd be playing lower power creatures. You wouldn't be blocking with them because you want them to stay out. You know, that you'd be sort of playing around the possibility of playing this card. So it's a sort of a, you know, in the long game versus short game sort of strategy. It's a mid-level planning thing you'd have to do. But it also could be like if you have some abilities that give you creature tokens, or planeswalker spells that give you creatures or creature tokens, then you might just be activating those more than you normally would because you know that you want to play this character or this creature, this spell, and that when you play this spell, you're going to get extra life for all those creature tokens. So it's just it doesn't necessarily require you to build your deck around it, like I have said some of these other cards do, but it does require some build up in the immediately right before you play it in order for it to be really worth it. You can play it in a pinch without that extra preparation beforehand, but you're just not going to get as much out of it. So the cost of 3, for the cost of 3, you'd want to be able to get out of it what you can. So you'd want a deck that has the creature token option, or has a lot of like low cost creatures, or a planeswalker that gives you creature tokens. So it is sort of a specialized card, even though it could be valuable in pretty much any deck. The last 3 cards we have here, one is an artifact. This is a pretty artifact, I like it. It's the Mana Geode. It costs 3, and when it enters the battlefield, you scry 1. I believe that means that you look at the top card off of your deck, and you can choose to either put it on the bottom of your deck or leave it there, I think. And so when you tap it, you get 1 mana of any color. So that's a really good deal, depending on what kind of deck you have. Ben was talking to me yesterday about building a rainbow deck. That's a deck that has all of the different colors, and those can be hard to sustain without cards like this one that allow you to get mana of any color. So the fact that it costs 3 isn't great. The fact that it only like 4/3 for the 3 cost, the only additional ability you have besides the very helpful mana of any color, the only additional ability you have is the ability to scry 1 once. I don't know on the scale of cards that give you any color of mana. This isn't a super great one, but it is pretty. I do love geodes, so what you gonna do? The second to last card is a land card. It's called Blast Zone, and it looked complicated. I didn't read it, but it looked complicated. Blast Zone enters the battlefield with a charge counter on it, so you just put a counter on it. And then when you tap it, it adds a colorless mana. That is different than a mana of any color. Colorless mana is almost like it is its own color. It's sort of cheat, sort of a cheating mana. Because there are some creatures and spells that cost specifically colorless mana, like this costs specifically red and green mana. There are some creatures and spells that cost specifically colorless mana, so you would need something like this in order to cast those. But you could also use it to fulfill like the 2 part of this cost, not the blue-green part, but the 2 mana. Anyway, then so those are sort of like straight up and down abilities. I said straight up and down a lot this stream, whatever. So then for the cost of 2x, that's 2 like a mana of x, but 2 times. Okay, I'll read this. It's hard to explain. For the cost of 2x and tapping this, you put x charge counters on Blast Zone. So if you want to put 1 charge counter on this, you need to pay 2 mana and tap it. And so that means that when you tap it, you can't use mana from this card to pay for that ability, because you have to tap this card for that ability, so you can't tap this card for its other ability to gain mana, if that makes sense. You can't tap something for two different abilities at the same time. For the cost of 3 mana and tapping Blast Zone, sacrifice Blast Zone and destroy each non-land permanent with converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters on Blast Zone. So converted mana cost. So converted mana cost would be like this. Converted mana cost is 3 because there's one special kind, another special kind, and then one of any kind. Same with this one. This one is 3. I don't know why her like ghost hair gets in the way of the cost of the spell, but so she's got one of any kind of mana, and then one of either blue or green, and one of either blue or green. So that's a mana cost of 3. So you can destroy each non-land permanent with converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters on Blast Zone. So you pay 3 mana, you sacrifice this guy. If it has 5 charge counters on it, then you can destroy a non-land permanent. So that would be a planeswalker, a creature, an enchantment, anything that stays on the table. If it costs 5, oh no, it has to cost exactly 5. It looks like with converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters on Blast Zone. So you have to aim for it and hit it. You can't do more. So you can't be like, oh, I have 6 charge counters, but I want to destroy this thing with 5. So that's sort of weird. Usually it would say like converted mana cost equal or less than the number of charge counters, but it doesn't say that. So here we are. So Blast Zone, very specifically useful, but does give you colorless mana. So, and there's not a big cost to it, like some of these special lands. When you have to put them out, or when you put them out, you have to like sacrifice a card or use some life or something like that. But this doesn't have that, so that's nice. And then we have our Planeswalker. This is the thing that I said no spoilers, because I do believe we have seen this one already. Ashiok. Ooh. I just remembered that I just showed it to you just like seconds ago, so spoilers, I guess. Ashiok Dreamrender. She costs 3. She's a blue-black. Spells and abilities your opponents control can't cause a controller to search their library. And then that's her just like static ability. And then for the cost of 1 loyalty, target player puts the top 4 cards of their graveyard of their library into their graveyard, and then exile each opponent's graveyard. So you can sort of burn cards of your opponents. And once you run out of cards, the second you are no longer able to draw a card from your deck when you need to, you are dead. In Magic, you lose. So she's not got a lot of uses, but one of them would be to tank through someone's library so that they would die because they could not draw a card. So that is one method. Very specific. I don't know of any person who will die if they cannot draw a magic card. That sounds like a personal problem. See, Ben came in here and he wanted to look at all the cards, so he did. But he like sorted them, and so now I'm trying to sort them into the things that he sorted them in, but I can't find the token cards. Maybe he didn't sort those ones for some reason. Looks like maybe he didn't. Or maybe I moved them accidentally. That's possible too. Anyway, so that has been Magic Mondays. I'm now going to sort all these ones into their constituent areas. Have a good Monday, a good beginning of, and go to drugs and stay in school. Make good choices. Did I say that already? I probably did. I say it a lot because I just really want you to make good choices.